Okay, welcome to this energy and consciousness engineering session. And um, yeah, I'm excited to play um, tonight, today, whenever you watch this. It's tonight for me. Um, so let's just do a little bit of getting centered and arriving. So if you want to close down your eyes, you can do that. Make sure my headphones are working. Don't think they are. Okay. Just take a deep breath in through the nose, and then big sighing exhale out the mouth. And just notice your little bag there with you to pack away anything that's not needed, especially maybe parts that we would call ego or the small self, our disbeliefs, whatever you think you might not need, just allowing yourself to get as empty as possible. And once you've got that bag packed, you can place it outside the room or outside the house or even outside your town, wherever you want to put it. Just letting all of those aspects be put down for a moment. Just noticing if that invites the breath to kind of open up more, or if there's any shift in sensation in the body. Just let that breath continue to soften, continue to deepen, feeling it move in and feeling it move out. And then inviting the wise, loving self to come forward. Maybe letting her take shape. I love to invite my wise, loving self to come as my fairy godmother. Or however you'd like to meet your wise, loving self right now. And just notice if there's a particular landscape you'd like to place her in. A type of room or garden, where she can get comfortable and have her space, so that she might begin to invite all the wayward parts home. She might call to all that's been scattered. She might hold and whisper sweet nothings or croon to the numb parts, the inflamed parts, the fearful parts. She so easily and gracefully tends each of the parts that come home. feeling all of yourself being received, being known. Even that part that's been running, trying, struggling, the part you haven't forgiven, and the part that keeps pushing. Letting all of you be received into your body by your wise, loving self in this moment. Inviting yourself to soften the back of the body. You might even feel the call to melt down towards the floor and let that spine be held fully. And to begin to open the central channel with a little bit of energy hygiene, whatever is your favorite way. So you might have scrubbing bubbles come in. You might get a scrub brush. You might use the breath to press the light. You might have a white light, waterfall, whatever is your favorite way or feels best today. Just letting that central channel get a little refresh, reset. And just allowing that central channel in your awareness to extend well above the top of the head and well below the pelvis, feet into the earth. As if your body were the center point of this long, massive central channel. And then once that central channel feels all crystalline and crisp and clear, invite yourself to begin to run energy in the descending pattern. So from the top or above the head, down to below the feet, coming out the sides, moving through the toroidal field in all directions, and pouring back into the top. You might notice there are different currents or frequencies, rhythms, colors, pulsing, and all of this energy moving through. Just noticing how much sensation, how much awareness can you bring to that energy. And then inviting the descending current to begin moving up from the bottom, through the central channel, through the body, out the top, all through the toroidal field, raining back down to the bottom, feeding back in, creating this counter current. Notice if you can feel the spinning happening in what we might call the opposite direction, all around you and within you. Well, just take a moment to play here and float inside these currents moving through you and around you. And then we're going to center our awareness down towards the bottom, the beginning of the descending current, the ascending current, the current that comes up. I may have said that all backwards, but hopefully you found your own way through. We're going down below the feet into the earth to our Earth star. So this energetic portal into the field of the Earth star that connects you, not just in physical form, but in energetic form, magnetizing you to this plane. That being as the plane manifests in materiality in the third dimension, as well as the other dimensions that we might call the Gaia consciousness of this plane. For most of us, we can let in a little bit more nourishment or connection to this Earth star, allowing ourselves to be here more fully. And what I'm going to invite you to meet right now is any fear that you might have about your mission, your vision coming to fruition, your life having purpose or impact, your voice going out into the world, however it might be showing up, whatever you might language it as, just meeting that here. And what I want you to do is give that fear over to the Earth star. Another way of saying this would be to give it over to Gaia. Let it be held in something that's bigger. And just notice what happens there in that alchemy. As you admit, allow, accept, and surrender. And then as you're ready, just taking a deep breath in through the nose. Letting it go out the mouth or out the nose. And stretching the body, bringing some gentle movement. Grabbing your water, blinking open your eyes, and coming back. And if anyone would like to share anything from their experience or has any questions about that energy work, the floor is yours. All right. Well, I just want to remind us as we begin this session that generally however your fear showed up, so some of the fear shows up in like, oh my gosh, it's too big, I might not be able to do it. And that's okay, right? That aspect. And then the other side of the fear can, show up is like, the who am I to be so great, so grand? Who am I to have this vision of the world? So just noticing however your fear showed up, it's an archetypal pattern. So are you able to meet that fear without taking it personally, of just like, oh yeah, of course humans have that experience of believing they're too much. Of course humans have that experience of believing they're too little. It's part of what we're experiencing and learning to move through, rather than making it really personal. I want you to write down at least 10 things that you would like to be experiencing or creating or going through. And you can think about this in the next season or the next year, whatever kind of makes sense for the way you work your life timeline. So what are some things you want to be creating, you want to be experiencing, you want to be living into? Just brain dump some of those. So let's just go around, and you can keep writing. Also, if someone says something really great that you're like, I want to experience that too, write it down. Crowdsourcing. But you can share a few to whatever, as many as you want. And if there's things that you sort of go, I don't want to say that out loud, you have to share that. So if there are parts that you want to like keep secret just to yourself, those are definitely ones to share. Okay, so Megan, you're first on my screen, so you can.
I think they're all kind of combining together as one. It was interesting during that energy work. I just kept hearing music, and it was like, you know how when you say there's a soundtrack to your life, like each new element or like phase of that journey or energy work, like a new song came in, and it was just like the energy was weaving itself through as melodies. So I wrote down that I would like to experience my song. So I experience the melodies as they weave through me. And I think like that's a place that in many ways, I keep separate, right? Like as this like, back to kind of that pattern of compartmentalization. But I just began to get curious as I was writing of like, what if I thought of my entire life as a song? And I allowed like the soundtracks, these various melodies and kind of like little threads, if I let those begin to weave into a whole, instead of it's like, oh, that's this thing over here and what else? But like, what if that's actually the thing? So
yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's joining me in song. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I love that. I love that imagery as well to work with. Yeah. Upset cat there.
Yeah, we have some singing from the kitty. All right. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Sharon.
Okay. What I wrote down was, of course, moving into a new home, moving forward on my show, traveling out of the country.
Ooh. Bold. I love it.
Finish recording my song. And I also wrote down baking, as well as writing, doing some more writing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Good. Good. Terry. Hello. I'm just going to read them all out. Build our home, move to the island, have a healthy baby, develop a writing habit, publish writing, develop a successful business, learn how to care for my baby, feel supported and empowered through pregnancy and birth, develop a habit of expressing myself with ease, not obligation, get permanent visa status on the island. Love it. Just a few things. Just a few things. That was like more than just this season though, right? That was a larger
next
picture.
year.
Yeah, the next year. Okay, great. Just double checking that full throttle.
Well, funnily enough, my fear that come up is it's not enough. There's not enough time. It's not happening fast enough.
At least we're consistent in those things there, right? So good. So beautiful. Rose.
I desire to work with people who love to learn, who are totally lit up by learning as much as I am lit up by learning. I want to feel charged up to create events, workshops to guide and ignite awareness. I desire a masculine support person of the flavor of Jason, having just spontaneously creating my website, something like that. I desire to release the paradigm of separation. I desire Chit Ananda, the joy of awareness. I desire to write and post more often. I desire to discover who is my audience. I desire to grow less dense, to release density. I desire to feel lit up by people around me and to visit New Zealand. Stole that one from Sharon.
Beautiful. So you and Sharon are exiting the country. I love it. I love it. You let me know how it goes. I might follow you if it goes well. So good. So beautiful. I love that you're leading with the word desire too, just to really anchor that into your system. So good. All right. Now, how do you want to experience these things? How do you want to experience these things? And you can process this one however works best for you. For some of us, it might be a list of emotions or sensory words. For some of us, it might be a little bit more poetic. For some of us, it might be going, closing our eyes and diving deep into our inner sensations now. So allow yourself to process this however your system processes. But how do you want to experience these things? And if anyone would like to share anything from that.
I'll share what's come so far.
Mm-hmm.
And Theos, filled with the divine, filled with light and lightness. I want to experience these with open hands, not grasping, not pushing away, not pulling, just open hands, with softness, receptive. I want to experience these grounded in my own worthiness. And I want to experience these staying in center.
Beautiful. So if you were to give this, the way you want to experience things, one word or one symbol, something that could become the shorthand for that script, what would it be? So for me, my long shorthand sentence is the remembrance that this moment is my life. I tend to scramble ahead. I tend to want to only be in the big picture, the lofty goals. And so for me, the script that I'm working with is remembering that everything, the micro detail, is my life. So my long sentence is the remembrance that this is my life. My short script is just this moment. My symbol is the infinity symbol, but I focus right into the center part where the cross happens right there. Okay. So using that as your jumping off point, what is it that you want to create that can anchor you? So you don't have to remember that entire list all the time. You do want to work with this list, and until it becomes really encoded, want to work with this script daily, reviewing these things, writing them, reading them, listening to yourself say them. Once you get that, or as you move through the day, you want something that's really quick that you can drop into.
So mine is like a just a complete feeling state as I'm in a moment. Like there's no,
Yeah, just sensation.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
experience of walking along the beach watching the sunset.
Perfect. Yeah, and your cells know that place.
Yeah.
And then you can bring up that visual if you need it of walking on the beach.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody else want to share? And even Terry, if you can get it even more specific, like if there was a moment, like one time that you were doing that on the beach, that you were like, this is it. This is how I want to be living. You know, you have that real lived sense into it. Sharon, go ahead.
For me, it feels more like that I'm just breathing in a completion, a sense of completion, but it feels like a breath. And that whenever I take that deep breath and there's also a pause in it, like taking a pause to just breathe the feeling of completion in for those feelings in that moment.
Yeah. And notice if there can be a symbol or an image that goes with that so that it roots deeper into the subconscious.
The symbol is a spiral.
Beautiful. Yeah. Gorgeous. And notice which part of that spiral really shows completion to you.
And then I'd have to say it's citrus scaling. It's all three.
It's all very perfect. Yeah. But do you feel the difference of the clarity of that, right? Like, oh, spiral, but then it's like no, completion actually would be that moment that there's the three come together.
Yeah.
Not
that an ending, but just a continuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Welcome, Morgan. We're talking about how we might want to experience things and trying to find a shorthand for that. So for you, just since we kind of were working with this a little bit that came out of Sunday, thinking about how you might want to feel going through this kind of prove it, claim it phase of your life. And if there's a symbol that could represent that for you. And I won't make you share since you're just jumping into the middle, but just gotta catch it, jump in with that. But would anybody else like to share theirs? Yes.
The one word that feels the most full of energy is entheos. And the symbol that comes to me is like a circle with, like as if a sun. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love it. Yeah. Those of us who are doodlers, it's really good to have a symbol you can doodle and that it's not so complicated. You can doodle. If you're not a doodler, don't worry about it. But if you're a doodler like me and you're always needing to draw things, drawing the symbols that you're encoding into your existence is the best kind of doodling you can do, right? So sometimes we think like the sacred geometry has to be really complicated, but really it's however your system works, right? Okay, fantastic. I want you to go back to that list, and Morgan, you can start yours right now, about some things that you want to be experiencing in this next season. And what I want you to do is pick one thing. So if you wrote it for the year, go ahead and pick one thing that's more immediate. Even if it's not going to be necessarily quote unquote complete or done in this next season, something you want to be creating, experiencing, living into, bringing into your life This can be in any area of your life. So it can be business, career, service related. It can be personal, whatever you want. Creating our lives doesn't really have categories, right? So we just categorize it so that we can, keep track as humans, but it's all our life, right? There's not really a difference between professional and personal. Even though we like to pretend, and that so supports us, our need to have masks on because, I've got my professional face and then my personal face, and really we just have one face. So it's all the same stuff, but you can think about it in whatever category you'd like. And when you've got it, you can throw it in the chat box or unmute yourself and share what is your thing. And I want you to, I'm saying share, but what I'm actually asking you to do is to hear and feel yourself speak it. Right? We don't care if you say, like, it's dog barking. That's what I want to be experiencing. I want to experience dogs barking. We could care less what it is. Right? But I want you to have the experience of speaking, listening, and feeling yourself say that thing. Okay? And if the first time you say it and you were like so focused on us, then you need to say it again. If this means you need to, so does everybody know how to take yourself so you don't have to see yourself when you're speaking? So you click your 3 dots and you can take yourself out. So if like looking at yourself is a problem to you, either turn off your camera or hide your own view. Okay. So you've moved around on my screen. So Sharon gets to start this time.
Okay. So for me, it's writing more articles. I want to experience doing that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Haris. Harry.
I don't know. Can you come back to me?
Yep. Rose.
I desire to work with an audience of people who love to learn.
Beautiful. Megan.
For me, it's my songs. It's the music.
Can you say a little bit more?
I don't know, a little bit more.
Like, I want to write a song. I want to listen to a song. I want to be a song. I want to.
All of it. Specifically, like I'm seeing it as the word anthology. Like I want to create my song book, like a collection of song. I don't know that I have to write all of it. I'll probably write some of it. Some of it can just be songs I've practiced that are mine to sing and prepare, but like the creation of that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Morgan.
I want to feel like I have a home space that I can inhabit.
Mm-hmm. What's the word space felt a little uncertain. Is that the word, or is it did a belief come in there to wrangle that word up?
Well, I guess the word home by itself doesn't resonate as well with me.
Uh-huh.
So I felt like I needed to add a addendum or something. So that's where the space came in.
Good. Just take a breath and don't say it to explain it to us. We don't need to understand anything about it. Just say it in the language that makes the most sense to you.
I want to be in a space where I can be myself.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Carrie.
This is not on my list.
Perfect.
I want to be in a space where I'm completely happy with my circumstances in the present moment.
Yeah. It's on your list now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love it. Love it. Great. If you haven't written that down, go ahead and write that down. And I want you to write a couple of notes to yourself about what you noticed, what you heard as you spoke it. And if you're uncertain, just say it out loud to yourself again. What do you feel as you say this? What do you hear in the energy of your words? What do you experience from meeting this place of desire and intention? And the thing is if we're really truthfully honest with ourselves, there's going to be a multiplicity of emotions there. There can often be excitement and fear. There can be a yes and also an oh shit. There can be grief that it's not actualized already, as well as the hope that it's coming, right? So don't be afraid to meet everything that's in there. One of the ways we fuck ourselves in creating our life is that we try and gloss over this place of actually meeting all that's really here as we come to a desire. We think we should just be happy because we're going to do the thing or we want the thing. But actually, if there's tons of grief there, if there's feelings of loss, if there's feelings of heaviness, if there's uncertainty, all of that has to be met. Right? So we don't want to gloss over. So meet whatever you can meet inside of this desire. Be willing to name it to yourself. Everything that's here. Notice if doubts start popping up immediately. Notice if you tend to go right to the how. How will I make this happen? Okay, I've named the desire, and now how? I'm gonna do some things, right? So notice if you're, little grumbly gremlin. Although Morgan's becoming grumbly, so definitely notice your grumbly gremlin here, Morgan. But notice, the parts of us that come out here to sort of fix it for ourselves. Right? Another place we fuck ourselves in desires is that we try to fix it for ourselves rather than be inside the experience of desire, guiding and intention. And anytime we go into fixing mode, consciously or unconsciously, we're trying to bypass energy and we're trying to rely on human strength to move the furniture in the burning building to keep ourselves inside of an experience we're trying to believe we want. More than likely, every time we do that, it's unsatisfying. We get confused as to why we made that thing. Right? All right. Does anybody want to share an example of fixing? Yes. So you said, Megan, that you were interested in an anthology, right? So fixing for you would probably look like that you decide that you know what anthology means and that you determine that you're right now in this session, you're like, I'm writing 12 songs and then I'm going to ask if I can perform these other 3 songs and then I've got an anthology, right? That you go to the end, go to thinking that you know what the end product looks like. Or another way that you might fix it as well, Megan, is to sort of go into the, well, there's no way I could get that done. So your squashing is a fixing mechanism for you, right? Is there something other than fixing that might happen? Yes, squashing. Controlling. The voice that says that's a stupid desire and how would you ever make that happen? You don't even know what that means. You don't have any money. You don't have any friends. You don't even know how to write something. Like all of that can be happening right here as well, right? And your job is just to put it on your paper and name it or say it out loud to us. That's your job right now, is just to witness it. You don't have to take it personally, right? So just all of those parts are welcome here and they need to be met. Partially so that we can begin to disrupt those patterns. If you do have a pattern of squashing, fixing, going right to the end result, that has to be met, right? If you have a pattern of just falling into the collapse of self-doubt, right? So another big thing that happens is that we might have grief or loss come up, and then that orients us to turn back to the past as proof of why we can't in the present or the future have a different experience, because it's always been like this, right? And there'll be plenty of circumstantial evidence that we've experienced that will say, you know what, you're right. You're right. So we want to make sure that as we meet the emotions, they're not changing our orientation from being welcoming in this moment to all our parts. That hurt little girl from the past who didn't get a space where she felt welcomed or could be herself, like she's welcome to come sit right here. We want her. But what we don't want to do is turn to where she is. Right? Okay. Anybody want to name what they're experiencing, especially maybe some difficulty they want some support with? Yeah, Rose, go ahead.
At first, I felt this, as I was saying it, I could feel like I wanted to weep. I could feel it in my throat. And then just recognizing, oh, that's an energy sensation. And in recognizing that, this was as I said it, I felt like weeping, but then it was energy. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so enlivening. This is kind of like amazing. And then reflecting on it, it feels true and whole. And I felt an upwelling. And then, oh shit, oh, I can feel that in my thighs just saying it. Oh shit, this is big. I feel vulnerable. And then the words, this could flatten me, which is how I often turn to the like, remember when you couldn't, and then you, that's the, oh, this could flatten me, that. And it's like, there's this drama loving part of me that wants it to be really big. So it's going to have to be scary and hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Such good patterns to recognize in all of that. To that part of you, to your drama trauma self, what I want her to know is that that pattern will always result in a sabotage. Right? That push for the dramatic to get that sense of drama trauma will, we always sabotage there. Right? And what's usually underneath that is our inability to actually be with the desire for bigness. Right? So usually the drama trauma is the protective mechanism that keeps us from having to drop deep enough to, I desire not the ordinary. I desire beauty and adventure and to be known, and right, like those things, right? And so then the drama trauma pattern will live on top of that so that we can say it's too big, it's too much, we'll create a drama trauma out of it, we'll do something to burn ourselves out or to sabotage it, right? Or to make sure that what we magnetize in is going to be someone who goes poof, and destroy, helps us blow it up or destroy it, right? So what I want is to invite the drama trauma to get real. right? Because our drama trauma patterns are just the part of us that are protecting us. And they're like little pig pens. Do you guys know pig pen? So Terry's like, no, we don't have pig pen. So pig pen is a cartoon character, but he just created dust clouds everywhere he went. He was just dirty. And so it's like all the energy, that's what our drama trauma does, is it never lets us settle. It never allows us to land into the present, into the desire, into the truth of being uncomfortable, right? Which means we can never learn to soothe ourselves when we're uncomfortable because we stay up here. And then we use all of our tools to keep doing all the things that keep us up here, right? And we go through a day, and by the end of the day, we've done 32 meditations, we've tapped 16 times, we've done all these things, all just because it's like, and so I'm using the drama trauma as we use it then like in our woke state, like in our, we're being spiritual, so like we won't go out, and just have random willy-nilly sex and with strangers. So we do tons and tons of practices, right? So and I guess from the health ways, like, okay, that's a great, we've made some choices there along the way, but the pattern's really the same. And the pattern is what keeps us stirred up, right? So that's a really great pattern to notice. Thank you for bringing it forward, Rose, because it is something that as we create and we step into full co-creatorship, we have to be willing to disrupt our drama trauma in all the ways that she shows up, right? I've got like 6 drama trauma personalities, right? And they don't show up the same way. And I have to, I've got a drama trauma. She's really quiet. She's still stirring shit up. She's just gotten really good at looking like she's being stoic and serious, right? But still, it's all about not landing, and it's all about not feeling that depth. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, Rose, go ahead.
It's about not feeling that depth. As I was listening and recognizing so much of what you're saying, it strikes me that place that loves drama, there's a lack of integration. Like there's a lack of worthiness. Like I can't quite integrate the level of worthiness that I'm asking that this desire comes out of.
Yeah. And so what drama trauma does is, Rob, we can't. So if who put down something that they're like, I'm totally worthy of this right now. I know that I can live this out fully. Did you put that down? If you did, go back and do it again. Right? Because if it's not something that's inviting us to live into a new level, then we're just dialing this shit in. And that's not creating our life. Right? Every season should be inviting a new level of worthiness. Right? And depending on where we are in our life and what's going on, that may be driplets. That may be like, oh yeah, just some sprinkles. That's what I need right now. And for some of us, it might be like full on deluge of what we need, right? Doesn't matter. But every time we say, I intend, I desire, I want, I am, that needs to be inviting us to a new level of integrating worthiness. What drama trauma does is it goes, oh, no, that's too hard. That's too much. You don't have that. You don't have it. Well, how the fuck do you get across the room if you don't learn to put your foot down right where you are? Right? So what drama trauma does is it tries to get us to lurch ourselves across the room, which of course we fall over. Right? Rather than being like, I don't know how to cross the room. I've never learned to walk like this before. Let me just see where I am. Let me try. Let me do a dance I do know. Okay, that right, like rather than just being where we are with the curiosity of how do I become that? How do I allow that level of experience? How do I open to the belief? Right? What you brought forward is such a perfect segue to what this session's really about, which is that we live at the level of our nervous system availability. So I want you just to draw like a straight line. You can draw it either direction you want, up or sideways. And you can go 0 to 100 or 0 to 10. I don't care what your number system is. Right? But I just want you to ask yourself, look at your desire, look at your intention, and then ask yourself, how available is my nervous system for this? And just go, put the mark wherever it lands right now. Don't be overly methodical. Don't be dramatic. I mean, I'm never not dramatic, but you have to learn to separate the drama trauma from just, you know, your drama mama. But just ask yourself, how available? How available? Let's try this way. Trying to do headphones because I tend to yell without them. Anyway, I'll yell at you. Rose, tell us how available your nervous system is for your vision.
4, but I want it to be 7.
So you're on a 0 to 10 scale.
On a 0 to 10. Yeah, I would say for sure 4. And it kind of brings up a question for me of like, okay, I want to answer authentically and just from my intuition. But then there's a part of me that's like, just claim fucking 7.
Don't just claim 7. This is a way we fuck ourselves. This is our false positivity. I'm just going to affirmation my life into being. And you cannot affirmation your life into being while denying what your nervous system's telling you. So thank you for being honest. 4 is perfect to start.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a place to be positive. 4 is enough to start.
Absolutely. Why don't my headphones work? Yeah, 4 is a place to start. Right? And 0 is a place to start. The biggest place to start is recognizing where am I really in terms of being available to this, because that's going to give you every bit of information you need about what is the strategy I need to be working. Right? And so most of us don't know what our nervous system's available for. So our nervous system stays oriented towards things we don't want to be available for, which means that's what we're experiencing and living and creating, right? Yeah. Terry, how about you?
Mine's a 3.
Great. And what did you notice in writing that or coming to that number?
I feel like what you just said about that kind of steamrolling, well, that's what I interpreted it as, is that, yeah, I've been like ignoring that that's where I'm at and going for what I want, regardless of the circumstances, and not accepting the position I'm in. And that means I'm really sad.
Yeah.
I'm really fucking angry.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because when we try and bypass that anger and that sadness, we're just trying to stick stuff on top of it. And it's not going to, but we're not down at our foundation. Right?
Yeah.
So that anger and that sadness needs to have its voice and its say, and it needs to be met. And it's probably asking for some support and asking for some witnessing and asking for things that have felt impossible
Yeah. And so we can't, I tried, and I know some of you are also like me, like, I'll just keep going around these things and they keep showing up. Right? So, yeah. So thank you, sadness and anger.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And like that fear of it's not enough and
Yeah.
trying to like steamroll or jump over that to ignore it
Yeah.
just keeps the sadness and the anger in place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Megan.
I went to percentages in my little line. So I was thinking 0 to 100 and I wrote 60 to 70. I feel like I'm like right in that range of 60 to 70.
Fantastic. What do you notice about that range?
I noticed that that's a range that feels comfortable and that it's really easy to dismiss it and to say like, well, are you really there? Like, can you really hold that? You know, but then also like it feels like the rest of that 30% beyond that is like there's a glass ceiling. Like I've cut myself off from like, okay, like the thing that came forward was like, this is as good as I'm willing to be. Like I'm not willing to be.
I heard that too. This is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
This is as good as it gets. Yeah. So it's like, and what I feel like in your system, we were talking about this a little bit the other night, where your system's like, we're just going to celebrate this. Like, this is just good enough. Like, we're just going to stay here. Right. So it's like, but also like, okay, honoring myself. Like I've been doing a lot of nervous system work. My nervous system, 60% to 70% available. And it's still riddled with the doubt of going further.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's okay. But like noticing both of those things. So like celebrating where you are, but being realistic about like, because what's interesting and what you'll know the more you do this is that actually that 10 or that 100% doesn't mean anything because it's all relative to your system. Right. So for some of us, 60 to 70%, like depending on what it is, if I get to 60 to 70%, I'd be golden. Like I could totally create. On other things, actually need to be about at 125% to get there because of the type of thing and the way it sits in my system. So the more you do this type of like measurement and just getting to know how your system kind of lands in this way of tracking so that you can kind of understand, you'll know what your numbers mean. Right? Because there's no standard. 10's not great and 2's not bad. Right? It's what it brings up in your system. Right? And so I love that you're noticing 1670 and that there's that part that wants to both like dismiss that and also be like, it's good enough. And I think that that's a really big pattern for you. And so it's like, what else is underneath that? Right? And for you, you might go, okay, well, the numbers don't work for me and I need a different way of looking at this. Maybe it's colors. Maybe I need, green, red, yellow. And I need to know whether I'm in green so I can move or if I'm red so I'm frozen. Yellow, that's a great way of doing it too, is to use, the kind of the color system instead of numbers. Since numbers don't mean anything to me, they work really well in the abstract. But if numbers are a big thing for you, they might not work as well in this way. Right. So thank you for bringing that forward too. So I can remember to say that to people. Okay. Morgan. So my headphones work again.
Yeah, I did to 100 and I said 30%.
And what do you feel or notice in that?
I'm just so irritated.
Yeah. Tell us about that irritation.
I don't know. I've been irritated for all week. I think Rose was laughing because I stuck my tongue out when you said what you just said about, I was like, oh man, there's a big part of me that's like, okay, so we're working like underground, but like when do we get to the stuff above ground? Like when does it just happen? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, this whole week I've been like lots of shaking and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we talked last time we talked, I think there's like, and it's so funny because I think I meditate all the time or I do all the practices and but this week I'm meeting like a part of myself that really hates all of this, which is really weird.
And right on time. Right on time. Because part of that like irritation around the thing is you dissolving the belief that something outside of you is going to fix all of this. So that you can take back all the power that like, I'm going to get smart enough, spiritual enough, meditated enough, journaled enough, thought out, and any of those things to not have to deal with creating my life. Right. And so it's fine to be like, fuck it to meditation. I'm not going to meditate for a while. Right. Like it's the tools aren't the thing. Right. The tools are not the thing. That any modality can serve us, but not if we think it's going to do a thing for us. We have to take the power back. So I think the irritation's good. I think it's also forcing you to meet that part of you that wants to bypass the human experience of this. And as someone who sees you so fully inside of that, what the fuck about this minute, like who cares? Let's just get to the, like, just get right. Like I feel you. And trust me, I'm choosing a different existence next time. I'm back to alien people, right? That I get it. I get it. Like I want to be moving fast too. And obviously I chose this experience. So I get to figure out it's part of this human thing, not to be human, but to experience what it is to do it in the timing of my human. Right? Which still moves faster than most humans. And that's cool. And also has learned to not bypass herself in order to find that fastness of creation. Right? And I think that, kind of like Terry, those parts of those emotions that you have not wanted to allow to be part of the process aren't going anywhere until they're met. Right? And all of that face that you've had to keep on just to keep it together and keep going is wanting to dissolve. And that can feel like a really ungraceful place to be living. Yeah, absolutely. And I see you in that because I live there a lot. I know that place. But it's an important part of our cycle. And especially probably for the first big time that you're going through it, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it feels like we're going a little mad. And it feels like I just want to say fuck you to life and all of those things. Yeah. Yeah. So your irritation's welcome. It's not a problem. Right. And in some ways, these emotions that for some of us we've been told are negative or are not allowed, they're the fuel that you haven't had access to in your creations. They're the fuel that's needed. And if you really learn to embrace them, they won't show up with that same kind of tang or bitter flavor. They'll just become fuel. Right? So don't negate our anger. There's nothing wrong with our anger. It's information. And it's usually information about where we either did not feel like we could use our power, or our power was ignored or taken, or our conditioning led us to stay silent, whatever it is, right? And so in some level, that roar that got stuffed has to come out. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also Morgan, and I believe this is probably for Terry and maybe some others, but when we've been so good at things and we also have that perfectionist tendency, it can feel frustrating not to be immediately good or have it together, right? It can feel that sort of like, well, I've been able to do all of these things for myself before. I've been able to make things happen. Why now all of a sudden is it harder, or do I have to go slower, or do I need more support from other people? And there will just ultimately be parts of our journey that require us to come into different levels of collaboration and community, that require us to come into different levels of slowness and receiving, that require us to move with less appearance of perfection. Yeah. Yeah. New and scary. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting us see you. We see ourselves in you. Yeah. Who hasn't gone? Everyone's moved. Sharon, thank you.
I did percentages as well, and mine was pretty much 50-60. What's becoming more obvious to me is that that energy of pressure and perfection that comes up. The pressure is to get it done.
Right.
And it's not even perfection, it's procrastination that I play with a lot. So
right. So it's like all the mental pressure to get it done and none of the physical action, right?
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest hurdles for me.
Yeah.
When I seem to wallow.
Yeah. I definitely have an entire category of my life that falls into that. That arena, like, for the amount of effort I put into thinking about it, I could have completed something. Yeah, most definitely. What do you notice in your pattern of procrastination? Is it a protection? Is it what do you think is going on in that?
With the procrastination, there's a degree of fear, like I won't get it right, that I won't get it.
There you go. Yep. Right out of the mouth. I won't get it right.
Yeah.
Right. So that fear of being wrong, that fear of not getting it right, that fear of not being perfect, seizing you up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's imperfect action. More stumbling. Yeah. Do you remember we were doing the paintings with Samantha and Edie last summer? Like more bad paintings. Yeah, exactly. So good. Thank you. All right. So what I want you to do is to think about, so close your eyes for this. And if there's a place in your body that was feeling charged or activated in any way, go ahead and maybe place your hands there, or if it's a place you can't put your hands, just placing your awareness into that part of your body. And you can bring this into your one-on-one sessions, and we'll go deeper into your particular nervous system response. But for now, we're just going to kind of get that general response. And so what I want you to notice, if you're in fight, if you're in flee, if you're in freeze, and you absolutely can be in a combo. So you might notice that there's like one arm's fighting, but the rest of you's frozen. So just kind of notice what that might be. And notice as much as you can about that particular response, just from this kind of big overview area: fight, flight, and freeze. Notice the parts of your body. You might have an image. You might even have a memory that kind of crops up. So just noticing what you can. And if you're in freeze, I'm just going to give one more Actually, just give me a show of hands if you're in freeze. I won't do this if nobody feels like they're in freeze. Okay, great. So in the freeze, what I want you to notice is if it is collapse. So if everything's kind of like demolition collapsed, or if it's kind of frozen and it's pulled up, kind of ice cube. And just notice that if you're in freeze. And then you're welcome to keep your eyes closed, or you can open them. You can write anything down that you want to remember about what you're noticing in your body. So our body is designed to give us all of this data about our nervous system. And it's doing it consistently, even if we're unaware, even if we aren't paying attention. And even if we receive this data and we go, I don't know what it means, I don't know what to do with this. It's the body knows what to do with this. Right? The nervous system is both giving and receiving information all of the time. Sometimes the system begins to shift simply by our awareness and recognition of it. So sometimes even just in that noticing of like, oh, wow, I sure am in a fight pattern. Our system goes, thank you for noticing that. I just needed you to notice where we were, right? And some things can release. Often though, when we're working in this way where we're looking at what is that nervous system creating. So go ahead and ask yourself, from the state that you're in, what are you magnetizing into your life? What are you attracting? What are you creating? It's going to be both sides. So there's going to be a part of this that's the output of creation, and there's a part of this that's the input of magnetizing or receiving. So from your freeze, flight, or flee, and like Sharon, you may have already identified what you would call the language of the pattern. So I'm afraid of not being right, or I'm afraid to get it wrong. You can identify that dominant negative self-belief if you want in those words. You can just stay at pattern and sensation and energy as well. But what's getting created? And we want to notice what's getting created and what we're magnetizing for two reasons. So we can recognize it when it happens. Because in that moment, because a lot of this is going to be happening at the subconscious level. And so that moment of recognition, oh, that's why I'm having this experience, that becomes the moment we get to make a new choice. So until a new pattern becomes rooted at the subconscious, we're going to have to work with a little bit of hindsight, a little bit of retrospective, right? Re-imaging. So Morgan wants to be in a space where she feels at home. I don't know if she's in fight, flight, or freeze from her own definition, but what she might notice then is like one of the things she magnetizes is all the places where she doesn't feel welcome or accepted. And so every time she meets that, she has the opportunity now to make a new choice about how she engages with that experience. Right? And we want to make those new choices on all the levels. Mentally, what's the thought? What's my new thought? And I love to work with and statements here. I'm noticing I feel like everyone hates me in this space, and right? And so that we don't want to again bypass the experience that's already been created. Right? I'm noticing that I'm really irritated here, and I'm curious about it, right? So it doesn't have to be like our new thought, again, doesn't need to be across the room. It needs to be right where we are. But we want something that begins a new thought process. We want to feed ourselves new thoughts. We want to curate new thoughts. We want to curate new feelings. oh, I notice when I feel like nobody wants me here, I get really constricted. Okay, I want to curate a new feeling. I might not be able to inside that experience right this moment, curate the feeling of openness, but I might be able to curate the sensation of tingling in my feet. So even as I'm noticing that I'm feeling constricted and uncomfortable, I can also feel sensation in my feet, right? So curating a new feeling or a new sensation. A great way to curate something new physically is to bring in our sensations. So if you can begin to notice what your eyes or your ears or your mouth do inside of that experience, right? So my mouth will get really tight when I am, hitting those kind of trigger places, or I'm in that unconscious creation of what I don't want. And so physically, right, you might notice that you go into tunnel vision. And so physically, you might invite yourself to relax the points of your eye, or even reorient by like moving your head and your eyes around. You might notice you hold your breath. So you might invite yourself to, right? So you can have a physical cue as well that invites you into that. Okay. So when I have that place that we're inviting ourselves to make change in the moment. So on top of any energy work, any nervous system reset that you're doing, we also want tools that we employ in the moment, right? To invite new things. Anybody need any support with coming up with ideas about those things?
When I have that like the shadow side of this, like prove it, fix it, do it, just do it. Recently I've been getting this feeling like right between my eyebrows. It's like it's really intense.
Yeah.
And it's like pointed, and I've tried to like ask it what it wants. And anyway, I have this like really strong constriction in like that third eye area.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time of what to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if you could ask your third eye to show you what you need to see, but to imagine it coming out onto a movie screen, so you could move that sensation a little further out. Yeah. The other thing you can do is physically tapping in the back of your head on the cranial ridge. Yeah. Not uncommon when our intuition is wanting to come more online and more fully into our life, that we have weird third eye, headachy, toothpick eye kind of pains and headaches. So yeah. So just, acknowledging to yourself, and also like in that frustration of like, I don't fucking know what you're saying to me, like all of that's fine as well. But then just also saying, it's because part of your system's wanting you to remember a different language. And part of your system saying, I don't know that language. And so it's a little bit about creating a space for that bridging, right? But if you've ever like tried to learn sign language with someone, like you have to go, like they have to show you over and over, and you're like, wait, show me again, like, right? So it's like, it's also okay to say like, you're gonna have to slow down and say it again. And also then the more that we partner with that part of ourselves that's trying to get our attention, whether it's through sensations like this, the illnesses that are trying to talk to us, the disrupted sleep patterns, other ways that it might be showing up. And the more that we just say, I'm listening, then the energy will, especially if we have established a relationship with our energetic self that we're not going to pay attention, it it's so then it's in the pattern, or it's in the automatic response of like bitch slapping us, right? So, you know, as I've been working this pattern, which all of you've been on this journey with me for years now, right? Like, one of the things that I've had to retrain the energy is like, you don't have to come in so forcefully. Like, I'm paying attention, I am listening, I really do want to know, right? You don't have to bitch slap me. And I'm really sorry that you did previously need to take me out for me to be willing to listen. I get it, but I'm listening now. Maybe not great, maybe not all the time, maybe not, you know, but I am listening. So I think the more that we just talk to that energetic part of us that's wanting, right, to to be part of the experience with us and to show us what we're missing in our awareness. Yeah, so good. So what we didn't get to tonight, which what I'm going to encourage you to do, is to create a plan for yourself about how you invite your nervous system to become more connected to this vision. So we did the part of the beginning part here about meeting the shadow, meeting the fear, the constriction. But now we want to do the other side, because it's always top down and bottom up at the same time, right? So we started a little bit of the top down of like, what's the constrictions, what's the fear, blah, blah, blah. But now we need the bottom up approach. So this can be things like journaling about your dream, your vision, what you want to be experiencing, while staying aware of the inner sensations. Not to bypass the anger, not to bypass the fear, letting them have their voice and their say, and all of those things. You can do that in conversation with yourself as well. Working imagetically, so having boards or symbols around your space, your house, on your computer, things like that, that invite this. So like for Terry, that, you know, taking her beautiful sunset on the beach, I don't know if she said it was sunset, but walking on the beach, and she posts those beautiful pictures of sunset. That's why I thought that. But then, like, what's the overlay that has to do with this new aspect of how you want to be experiencing, you know, you're welcoming yourself or your life. So, you know, working with the image and working with words, working in movement, right? Going back to how would my body feel? What would be the freedom? What would be the sensation? What would be the expression inside of this place? And inviting it to become real and alive inside of you. It must be real and alive. What is real and alive inside of us is what we will experience. Now, I'm not saying, because I'm not interested in being like a master manifestor Lamborghini, I want to teach you how to make six figures kind of person. So I'm not going to say that that I'm interested, or that you're even going to get materiality out of this. What I am going to say is that it is going to change your experience of the external. And I do believe from that the pictures of the external change. But I'm not interested in it. And in fact, I think we've seen most people who believe in material manifestation, they crash and burn after a little bit, right? Because you can focus your thoughts in one direction to create a picture outside of you for long enough. But again, if the nervous system isn't able to sustain that, the moment you take your focus off of that thing, it's going to dissolve, or your connection to it's going to dissolve, or you're going to have to blow it up because you can't hold your focus on it. So what I do believe is that if we have this luscious inner life, if our nervous system is resourced into these places where how we desire to be living into, what we desire to be inviting ourselves to create, coming from this organic place of our center, it changes the way we're interfacing with the external. It also gives us the fuel that perhaps you know, so just looking, Morgan's right in front of me. So just, you know, that space, that place space thing, right? So it can begin to change that interfacing with like all of the spaces I'm going in, but it also can then begin to give me the fuel to say, no, what I really need to create. And how do I go about then shaping the materiality, the material world into looking like that, but from this organic place rather than from a place that requires violence against ourselves or the world to make things come to fruition. All right, we've gone over. I'll just take any quick last moments of sharing. This is definitely a to be continued work in all the ways. I'm really so grateful for each one of your courageous and vulnerable presences and your willingness to meet these things in a really authentic and raw way. It's no small feat, I think, to be inside of a container where people show up real and without pretense. So I really, really honor that in each of you.
I just want to say I feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I feel like I need to just spend some time processing that emotion before moving forward and work out a way.
No, that is it.
Yeah.
That is moving forward. Just processing that emotion is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That is the key to moving forward for you.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to journal about it. That's what I'm going to start. I don't know when.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. Yeah. Because I think with you so much, Terry, too, is because you're so smart that taking action place is not, that's not where the work is for you. You know, you've done that all your life, but this opportunity to be with these things that haven't had space to be met, like that is the key. And that's what's going to shift your nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Right. And what I think this is not a workshop to do is like go back and watch it immediately. I think whatever you take from it is where you start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Rose.
I guess I want your I think something just I kind of just want to celebrate, but I also kind of want your energetic read, and you'll call me on bullshit if I'm bullshitting myself. So the equivalent of when Morgan shared that she was getting that sensation, the thing that happens for me, you know, and I just ranked how much fight, how much flight, how much freeze. I'm like, okay, that one's the most, then that one, then that one. And the sensation that happened is this, like, all of a sudden I call it grog. It's like, oh, it's like everything, it's just too foggy. And then you were talking about, okay, and here's how you work with it. I'm like, that's the exact thing I can't do. I'm just so like out of it. I can't work with it. And so I was just sort of, you know, making notes. And then when you said, okay, make a plan, I wrote down the goal is to change the experience of to change my experience, not to change the external. And all of a sudden a light went on, like, oh, maybe the tired head, like working with that as an ally, is an invitation to go into the cloud of unknowing. Like maybe that's an energy state that is there to nourish you, and just don't think of it as like, oh, I'm too tired and I can't keep working, which is the old Rose. Like I got to keep, you know, it's only 8:30. There's another 2 hours I could be working.
Right.
Instead of that, just like, oh, maybe I just need to go into focus on, not focus,
Did
Like
you
just
say your did you name your pattern as fight?
I put flight is the most, and then fight, and then
Yeah.
freeze. I just ranked how much of each.
Yeah. So I think what's curious about you is that I would say that your system tries to use fight to save itself. And so that going into it, that might feel like a flee response of like going into that tiredness or that heaviness is probably good
Yeah.
to be with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And good. Okay. So that's, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting. You said my fight is a way to
That you try and save yourself.
save myself. My response to that was like, that's what fight is.
That's very true. Real true fight.
That's so interesting.
False fight.
Anyway.
I don't know what we're saving ourselves from. Yeah.
It's my nervous system. Saving myself from my nervous system.
Totally.
Okay.
And I would say overwhelm is a flee response. Right. And so like for Morgan and Terry and anyone else, Megan, who has that kind of that is feeling overwhelmed or has a pattern of overwhelm, one of the best things you can do is sort of say, what are my good fights? Right? So journaling might be your good fight. That might be how you stay with what you're feeling rather than letting the overwhelm pull you out of it. You know, so having those places where it's like, because that overwhelm can then be the permission to pull back out, right? To take that flee rather than saying like, okay, what's my good fight right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a clear sensation of my feet running, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is, I'm like preparing to either fight or flee. Like it's just like my feet are going.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think that's where your system is. You're trying to train yourself into fight. Yeah. So it's like, could I flee? Could I fight? But yeah, that the pulling out feels forgetfulness. Yeah. Yeah. Like that fog that comes, that feeling of our feet needing to move, that all of a sudden I remember every laundry's really exciting. You know, like all of those things. And just, you know, blessing ourselves when we're there. So becoming even more conscious of our flight patterns. Right? Not to sort of like, so sometimes our good fight is like, oh, bless you running away over there. Okay. Okay. We're running now. Right. So recognizing like, oh, I've gone into fight. I'm feeling forgetful. I'm feeling airy-headed. I'm feeling you know, all of those things. Getting to know that part of us rather than shaming it or trying to bypass it again. Right. The only way I'm going to be able to turn those flight patterns around that. And first of all, flight's not a bad pattern, right? Like there are some times when it is very appropriate, again, in those real moments of needing saving, or sometimes when things just don't matter, that it's like, no, flight right here is absolutely right. When we're fighting for our life in terms of creating the life we want to live, flight is not going to be the pattern we want, right? We're going to want to start with fight unless that's your propensity. And so you're going to want to get yourself into some sort of revving, right? So sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, that's what I do, right? That's my good fight. So rather than going into that overwhelm, I just get into my body with some like rubby, shaky sensation. And like, that's all I can, like, that might be all I can do in that moment. But like, that's my good fight, is like, not to be like, you know, and just kind of fall over. And again, we want to think about changing our nervous system as being some lofty, big thing. It happens in incremental moments over time. And we have to keep reminding ourselves the story changing over and over and over and over again. right? So as that overwhelm comes up, you're like, oh, I notice you overwhelm, and I'm inviting good fights now, right? Yeah, we will continue this. We'll just first of all, yeah, everyone's got one-on-ones coming up, but we'll pick up right from here in our next group topic, next group session, just to continue this type of understanding and embodying this at the level of the nervous system. Yeah. Beautiful. And pop questions into the Facebook group. Or go live and share what's coming up for you as well. Yeah. Can use that space as a sounding board and as a witnessing space. All right, loves. Have a great night. And yeah. For some of us, some shaking right now would be good. And for some of us, just laying down would be good. So go whichever direction is right for you.